Let's bring into the conversation right now former federal prosecutor Jim Trusty and also trial attorney Seth Berenzweig. We appreciate your time, guys, here on Live Now from Fox as we are awaiting the first appearance. Seth, I do want to ask you about that because there are those 7 counts laid forward and potentially the top definitely is going to be aggravated murder. Why are the other ones involved? Were you taken aback by what some of these counts were?
I wasn't really surprised to see the additional counts. The obstruction was particularly not surprising. That seemed to make sense. And witness tampering counts that have been included in the case of something that wasn't terribly surprising to me either. I agree that the presentation and the preparation of the case by the county attorney's office has been carried out in a very professional manner. There were 2 things that really struck me as I was watching this live today. The first was that the prosecutor's office did a lot of work in a short time frame. This was really thoroughly reviewed, investigated, and this criminal information, this essentially criminal complaint that was filed to trigger this proceeding was very narrative and very, very thorough, and it really is an airlock case. The second thing that really struck me is that this case will ultimately come down in a pivot point to the aggravating factors for the death penalty, which we have learned today is going to be pursued. And the aggravating factor, which is really at the top of the line here, is the commission of a felony with the grave indifference to life, threat to somebody other than the victim. And given the facts and the circumstances of this case, I think that that's very clear and present, particularly under the fact pattern that we had reviewed for us today.
This is going to be the hearing that's going to take place in about 5 to 7 minutes. We'll take you out to this as soon as it happens. Until then, Seth, I do want to continue to get your thoughts because obviously this will be the first appearance, albeit a virtual one, by the suspect, Tyler Robinson. What kind of motions should we expect? What should we expect from that hearing today?
Well, since this is the initial appearance, it's important to keep in mind under this particular process that this is not a preliminary hearing. This is not a motions hearing. This is something that's going to be somewhat of a rote procedural matter. It's, of course, going to be very dramatic. It's going to be something that's going to really strike an emotional chord with everybody, just given the incredibly horrific circumstances here. I don't think it's going to be terribly long. There's going to be an element of formality to it. But if we just zoom out for a moment and take a look at what's at risk and what's at stake, the fact that this is a death penalty case and that we're going to be getting into the aggravating factors is so crucial. Looking at some of the reactions nationally, and there's been a wide span of reactions, some of the folks that have taken a very callous view towards this really it almost shows kind of a gamification of the situation here. There's going to need to be a civilizational line drawn by the justice system to be able to demonstrate with painful clarity the consequences that this person is going to face for this horrific crime. So innocent until proven guilty, and it's the prosecution's burden. But this is something that everyone's going to keep a close eye on, and the road to justice really drives centrally towards the death penalty, especially given the horrific circumstances presented in this case.
Yeah, and obviously this is going to be a very highly publicized trial to take place there in this state courthouse in Utah. The first one, like you mentioned, obviously good clarity on what we could expect today.